Men versus women. What a strange form of enmity. I mean, just how has one of the most profound examples of duality distorted into this multifaceted blame game? But rather than exhausting the modern debates on who, what, why, how, when and where, I'd much rather share a story that I believe frames the subject in a way that will let you come to your own conclusion. Because that's what good stories are supposed to do. I'm going to tell you a story about Shiva and Shakti, the divine alphas, masculine and feminine respectively, who time and time again would incarnate on earth as devoted husband and wife to make a point about the nature of duality. Okay, story time. Long ago, there was an Asur king called Rambasur, and like most demon kings, he sought to use his power to rule over the three worlds. To attain this degree of prowess, Rambasur began to worship Brahma, an expression of the divine masculine who is known as the creator within the Trimurti. Rambasur began a deep tapasya, kind of like penance, which he did so over centuries. He hoped that his deep meditations and strenuous yogic practice would impress Brahma. They did. You see, the divine masculine indiscriminately rewards dedicated effort. He does not meter with moral nature or intention, but solely through karma. However, Brahma was known to deviate from this focus on thoughtful action and only required devotion to his name and for his benefit. And so, the divine masculine deity appeared before the demon king, impressed. "Oh, demon king, I can feel the love. Tell me, what boon can I grant you?" Rambasur grinned and said, "I have spoken your name no less than infinity in number, so I seek nothing less than deathlessness." Brahma replied, "Cool story, bro, but I won't make you immortal, because you cannot attain the same privileges held by me." Rambasur retorted, "Fine, then no deva, man or asur should be able to slay me, and whenever a single drop of my blood reaches the earth, I should be reborn 1,000 times, bearing this great strength. I fear no devi, no woman, and so, if she must be my only harbinger, she will stand no chance." Brahma, uninterested, said, "Okay, weirdo," and granted him this boon. From this moment forth, Rambasur was to be known as Rakt Bij, which literally translates to bloodseed, and might be the coolest name for a villain ever. This now OP bloodseed began terrorizing all three worlds, massacring men, violating women, devouring children and slaughtering animals. The devas collectively attacked Rakt Bij, but found they only worsened the situation, as their attacks would merely scratch the Asur king, causing drops of his blood to reach the earth, thus spawning 1,000 more of his duplicates with each seed. The pestilent Rakt Bij was now widespread, wreaking absolute chaos and doom across the three worlds. The devas rushed to Mount Kailash, seeking help from the most divine Shiva and Shakti. They arrived to find the divine couple in meditation and began to plead for their attention. Indra, king of the devas, spoke out, "The Asur king Rambasur has been granted such a boon by Brahma that we cannot defeat him. With his new strength as the virulent Rakt Bij, he only grows in strength and number the more we try." Indra began to recount the atrocities of Rakt Bij to the divine couple, his mindless massacre of men, his merciless enslavement of women, his sadistic pleasure in tormenting children, his insatiable hunger to consume all things living. As Indra described these horrific acts, Shakti awoke from her deep meditation, with eyes enraged. Shiva, aware of the emotions stirring within his beloved wife, began to trace circles in her palm with his finger, as he replied to Indra, "When the divine masculine makes deals with the wrong men, all those who exist are in the gravest danger. Every drop of blood that falls from Rakt Bij symbolizes the never-ending desires of arrogant men. Desires that can only be achieved through gross sacrifice and by exploiting the karma of others. And so Rakt Bij has made himself impervious to defeat by any form of the masculine, for it would only strengthen his resolve. Unfortunately, I cannot help you." Shiva turned to Shakti, who, after feeling the caresses of her beloved, had sauntered back into blissful meditation. Without opening her eyes, Shakti grinned and said affectionately, "I will resolve this problem." The sky was stained red from Rakt Bij's bloodlust. Only the traumatized screams of women who had lost their husbands and children to this voracious demon echoed across the earth as their subjugation continued. Suddenly, The sky cracked with the loudest thunder, and an enormous bolt of lightning set the ground ablaze. Despite the great fires surrounding him, Rakbij felt a presence that made his body turn cold with dread. There before him stood Shakti in her warrior avatar, known as Ambika. She was accompanied by 7 new goddesses to be known as a Saptmatrika, or 7 divine mothers. Each Devi was an expression of Shakti, reflecting the nature and competence of a chosen Deva, and was armed with the celestial weapon of her masculine counterpart, since Rakbij's boon had rendered such weapons in the hands of Devas and men to be ineffective, and would in fact just exacerbate the situation. There before the Demon King stood the most terrifying force of retribution any demon man or god had ever beheld. And yet, foolish Rakbij laughed psychotically, as his hatred of women convinced him that he need not fear any Devi. You stand before an army where not one soul trembles with fear for the wrath of a woman, be she human or divine. The 3 worlds rang with the howling laughter of Rakbij and his endless sea of demon duplicates. Ambika's eyes widened with rage, forcing her delicately threaded brows to span into the skies. All the while, a terrifying scream silenced the tormenting laughter that spread across the 3 worlds. The blood-red sky darkened into the deepest black as the terrifying screams echoed louder into the ears of evildoers. Towering above all 3 worlds stood Kali Ma. At such a grand height, the entire universe had been sheltered under her glorious blackness. She was everywhere at all times. She was time. You see, Kali Ma is a deeply misunderstood goddess. Her name does not simply observe her dark complexion. This is just the obvious exoteric deduction. Kal is the Sanskrit word for time, which has long been understood as relative to space by many ancient thinkers. Shiva is often referred to as Mahakal, the great time. This use of Kal reflects the nature of Shiva as the conscious framework that upholds the universe, whereas the name Kali is used to reflect the nature of Shakti as the conscious energy that fills this framework. In other words, Kali refers to space, which is deep, dark, and terrifying. It's the only form of nothingness that we can truly comprehend, and Kali Ma resides within every single iota. And so, upon realizing that his time had come, Rakbij and his army stood paralyzed in fear. The harbinger of doom, she had arrived. Ambika and the Sapmatrika descended upon the demon horde. War cries bellowed from the Devis as the voices of all women rang from their mouths. They obliterated the bodies of their enemies. Not one demon was spared. And before even a seed of blood could touch the earth, Kali Ma appeared at the exact moment to drink each drop. Rakbij, his army eviscerated, stood alone before Ambika, the Saptmatrika, and Kali Ma. He began to plead for forgiveness. But Ambika heard nothing, for the divine feminine indiscriminately punishes those who force her into rage. She raised her sword and decapitated Rakbij. Kali Ma devoured his head before it could reach the ground and imbibed the fountain of blood that sprung from his headless body. She then annihilated his bloodless corpse. But her rage did not subside. Kali Ma continued to scream and laugh hysterically as she inherited the bloodlust of her foe. She thought of all the hatred Rakbij inflicted upon women. She was angered by the arrogance of Brahma, who ignored this behavior. She was enraged that he would so thoughtlessly grant men and asurs with powers to oppress. She cried and laughed and cried and laughed, and then she lost it. Kali Ma was inconsolable. No Deva nor Devi, not even Ambika was able to stop her. She began to kill every man she saw in her path. Not one was treated as innocent. Even Devas were not spared of her deathly pursuit. Realizing the 3 worlds were still in deep peril, the Devas and Devis returned to Mount Kailash to once again seek help from the Most Divine. The divine couple were resting in bliss. Shakti lay peacefully in the lap of her beloved Shiva, who was in deep meditation. The Devas and Devis approached with haste and complete disregard for the peace they were disturbing. Indra exclaimed, "Hey Prabhu, oh Mata, please wake up. Kali Ma, fueled by an unquenchable rage, is destroying all men, gods, and civilization, without thought, without reason." Shakti lay still and spoke without opening her eyes. When the divine feminine is burdened with wrath and angst, she becomes blinded by her love for life and creation. She will not heed, she will not yield, she will not refrain. she will only seek a destruction to match her endless devastation. And so, upon seeing me, Kali Ma will only grow more enraged as she is reminded of those who betrayed me. She has forgotten what is most beloved to her, before all of life and creation. Unfortunately, I cannot help you. Shakti playfully pinched the arm of her beloved Shiva, who had paid no attention to the chaos and was still in deep meditation. Without opening his eyes, Shiva spoke calmly. I will resolve this problem. Kali Ma continued her rage-fueled descent upon all men in civilization, indiscriminately killing even those men who laid down in worship of the enraged goddess in the hope she might spare them. She did not. Shiva descended from Mount Kailash and observed all the destruction caused by Rukbija's arrogance and now by his beloved's inconsolable rage. He felt Kali Ma approaching and walked to meet her path. Her screams pierced through his body, causing him to feel the same anguish she was experiencing. But Shiva remained content and decided to lay down on the burning ground, with fires so hot the very earth was melting below. Kali Ma continued along her path, so blinded by her bloodlust that she was not even able to feel the presence of the divine alpha masculine she once adored. She stomped down her path until she stomped down onto something that was no longer the burning ground beneath her feet. Unable to recognize what was beneath her, Kali Ma roared into the skies, clearing all the smoke and fire that surrounded her. As she looked down onto the ground, bathed in ash and pools of blood, she was horrified by what she saw. Her most beloved, Shiva, lying on the desolate ground and under her feet. Not her enemy, but what was most beloved to her before all of life and creation. Shiva lay beneath her foot, unharmed, unscathed, and unaffected by her wrath. In fact, he was peaceful, still content in his meditation. Remembering the true nature of her beloved, Kali Ma stuck her tongue out in embarrassment, and almost instantly, all of her ferocity dissipated, causing such a great burst of energy that the sky peeled back to a bright blue and new life sprung into creation. Now, as I said at the start, I'm just going to tell you a story and let you come to your own conclusion. Thanks for listening.